Hello, everyone. Andy Schwab here from Next Year Country Podcast. As I'm joined with us today with, of course, Colton Young. We've gave Coulter Brown the day off here today. It is fair season, as you know, and one of his oldest is now in the fair show ring. So good luck to Owen Brown on showing the hogs, and a special guest in with us today, Miss Rodeo Montana. It's a sister of one of our very own, Jonna McCullough. Jonna, of course, joined our team here in this past year, but Bentley McCullough in with us now from North Central Montana, if you will. Two Sister Ranch, a Geraldine High School graduate who later followed her dreams in achieving a bachelor's degree in American Sign Language interpreting from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. Then made her way back to Montana and scratched an itch that has grown into Miss Rodeo Montana 2026 and now preparing for 2027, a Miss Rodeo America pageant. Bentley, welcome to our Northern Ag Country podcast studio.
Hey, Andy, thanks for having me. I'm really excited. This is the start of our pageant week here in Billings, so I'm glad I got to take the time to come see you guys today.
Boy, it's probably been just one wild road being on there for Miss Rodeo Montana. Well, we'll touch on a lot more of those in a minute. But of course, our first segment here is sponsored by BNSF. From America's farms to tables around the world, BNSF Railway keeps agriculture moving, operating more than 32,000 miles across North America. In fact, BNSF moves enough grain every year to supply a year's worth of supply of bread for 1 billion people. Backed by 175 years of railroading experience, BNSF is proud to connect America's producers with markets across the nation and across the globe. BNSF Railway, driving agriculture forward. Colton Young in studio with us as well, and Jonna McCullough alongside Bentley McCullough. It's football season.
It's preseason. We're back. We're back.
Finally back.
Hall of Fame game was 10 times better than the Super Bowl last year. I will never watch a Seahawk and Patriots Super Bowl ever again. But those young quarterbacks, they balled out. Denver opens up the preseason Friday night against the Falcons. They just announced Tua Tagovailoa will be starting in the preseason, so excited to see the boys whip up on him a little bit.
Sad not to see Troy Anderson on the Falcons there anymore. Got released. He'd been battling that knee injury for a few years, but hopefully he can get back to healthy and maybe land a spot on the Denver Broncos right next to another MSU Bobcat.
Next to Alex Singleton. That'd be pretty fun to watch.
Bentley, what's your predictions for the football season?
I'm just hoping that there's less injuries in the NFL than there has been in the pro rodeo. We have had injury after injury. It seems we've got a lot of pro rodeo athletes coming back. So I'm hoping that the NFL maybe has some better luck than the pro rodeo has.
Yeah, it's been a tough summer for some of those boys. I know Cooper just broke his back. That was a pretty bad one there.
That was a bad one. But we've got Wasey Shala on his way coming back, and Rocker Steiner as well. So it's we're gonna see how it shakes out at the end of this year.
Jonna, we'll let you give your 2 cents. NFL prediction, early season.
I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention, but I've always been a Packers fan, so I'm going to stay true to that. But I would like to ask Bentley one more time who she thinks is going to win the Super Bowl, because I don't really think she answered that question very well. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
Oh, I went to school in Boston. I got to go Patriots all the way.
Oh.
Sorry.
And that's going to wrap up this episode.
Yeah, she's out. And we're going to take you and your Drake May loving butt out of here.
I figured you were going to jump on the Chiefs bandwagon, but Patriots was also kind of my second thought.
Boy, that bandwagon's wheels have fallen off for the Chiefs. I'm sorry to say that. Not really sorry, but
I'm not sorry.
Not so much the Magic Schoolhouse bus anymore.
Oh, boy, we got some good headlines, though, this week. Of course, one of the top headlines, I think, that Colton Young was following very closely was that Meadow Gold Milk story that was happening here in Montana. And I'll just let you, Colton, take over on that, because you bet. You know the details. There's
a lot to talk about in the headlines. It's been a pretty busy last few weeks. Before we dive into that, we'd like to thank Western Ranch Supply for sponsoring this segment. Of course, Montana owned and operated since 1953, serving customers throughout Montana, Wyoming, and Western Dakota with a knowledgeable team that understands the demands of agricultural life. And since Montana Fair is in town this week, go check out Western Ranch Supply. They're having their fair and end of summer sale all week long. You can find that at westernranchsupply.com. But like you mentioned, Andy, there's been some big news here in Billings, and it's the Meadow Gold facility in Billings. However, that dairy processing plant serves eastern Montana, south central Montana, and northern Wyoming. And so essentially what had happened in the month of July, there were numerous customer complaints that came through about spoiled milk before the expiration date. And of course, the Department of Livestock handles all of the food facilities and whatnot for inspections. And so the Department of Livestock came in, did an inspection. They found several non-compliance issues in the facility. So what they have to do is they have to issue a notice of proposed license suspension. So what that does, there's basically two options, and I was able to visit with Riley Meredith, the public relations officer for the Department of Livestock. And Riley said essentially the facility can address those non-compliance issues, or they can take them to court and kind of argue that. It was pretty straightforward. There were some non-compliance issues. The department went through, did a re-inspection about a week and a half later, said that all of those were addressed, and so they withdrew that proposed license suspension. So the processing plant is back up. The dairy facility is rolling through, shipping like normal. Luckily, we didn't see any worse situation come out of that, because that could have been detrimental to a lot of communities, a lot of retailers in eastern Montana and northern Wyoming that would have to travel probably Bozeman or Great Falls to get their dairy products, and that's a lot of added freight, especially when you're talking all the way over Glasgow, Baker, all the way down into northern Wyoming. Could have been a pretty bad situation.
Yeah, and then you think also, as you mentioned, what do you do with the milk? I mean, these cows aren't going to stop producing the milk.
That's the thing. A lot of dumping that they would have had to have done for sure.
Yep, and I don't think that Bentley could have drank enough milk, done enough milk mustache commercials.
Couldn't sell that enough.
I couldn't have sold it.
Yeah, definitely a big win that came out of that. Like we said, there could have been a big situation that could have occurred for that. So we're thankful that got resolved. Other big news, Andy, we talked about it last week in the episode, and of course it came out after we had recorded and posted that, but the Farm Bill did fail the Senate Ag Committee, so we did not see the Farm Bill come through. Of course, now the Senate is on recess for the month, so they will come back for September. The good news is they just took recess, right? So the bill will still be there in September. I know that Senate Ag Chairman John Bozeman said, it's going to be addressed as soon as we come back. There was some positive news that came out of it, though, for some people, is before the bill got voted on and failed, there was an amendment made to add mandatory country of origin labeling. And that's something we've been talking about, I think, since day one that I've been here.
Boy, it's been a hot topic for sure, and we think about that mandatory country of origin labeling. It's been a big push like you've been talking about, but it did pass pretty handily. And in that fashion so much that enough Democrats had voted on in the Senate Ag Committee that they probably could bring this bill forward on a standalone bill in the full Senate, and it would be pretty well passed.
You bet.
You might need some more Republican senators to join in on that, but MCOOL is going to be continually being watched very closely as they try and move that farm bill through the Senate, like you mentioned. But the big thing there to me is they were missing Republican Senator Mitch McConnell. That was one of the votes gone, and then also there was another Republican senator that had somehow left before the vote came up, and so I don't know why you would leave a committee hearing. I think what the idea behind it was that there was going to be over 200 amendments brought forward by the Democrats, some others brought forward by the Republicans, and so a lot of those senators are like, well, I know how this goes. This is going to go till 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to go grab a quick bite to eat or step out or whatever it was, and they called for the vote, right?
Yep.
And during that time. And so had that senator been in there, it still would have failed on party line votes, 12-12. They'd need Mitch McConnell to get healthy and get back into the U.S. Senate to get that vote there. It's going to be a very important one. Of course, Farm Bill hasn't been a new Farm Bill since 2018. So it's just been updated in 2023 and then kicked the can down the road and re-updated over those years. So very, very important that they find ways to get the Farm Bill passed. And Jonna, what do you think about this whole situation?
Yeah, I've done actually quite a bit of research on this discussion topic. And the one thing that I just keep going back to, and I might be just a little bit biased of the way my sister and I were just raised, but I just don't understand, is kind of what I keep going back to as someone who was born and raised on a family operation. We're in a rural community where agriculture was everything. And without agriculture, we didn't have a community, we didn't have a school, we didn't have a grocery store. And so what I just don't understand is like, how can people just not want to support farmers and ranchers and just agriculture as a whole? And farmers and ranchers aren't the only thing that make up agriculture. So my main thing is I just don't understand why some people don't want to put more funding and more backing towards the agriculture industry. And then another topic that just continuously becomes brought up within the Farm Bill discussion is the SNAPS program and the food stamps. And so another thing is like, well, they want this SNAPS program to just keep feeding families who can't afford food. But it's at the same time, like the Farm Bill and the SNAPS program can so easily work together to make these things possible. But yet it seems like there's a side of the room that doesn't think that that's possible, which is another thing where I'm just like, why? Because the agriculture industry, if you don't have food for those food stamps, nobody's getting fed. So why aren't we kind of putting that support and that backing behind the agriculture industry for producers to be able to feed the people with food stamps and on the SNAPS program? So my main question is why? Why are we not working together to create one solution that makes both parties happy? But I've just seen a lot of what senators have been saying. And one senator had mentioned that Democrats are using American farmers as the sacrificial lamb. And I just kind of like sat back in my chair like, wow. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it just makes my skin crawl kind of. But I'm also just kind of biased by the way we grew up and what we know and coming from such a small town where agriculture is everything.
I agree. I totally see the split as well. But having lived in Boston and lived within a community that heavily relied on the SNAP program, I can totally understand why people are feeling maybe a little bit taken aback by this, because like, why are we thinking about taking away a SNAP program and taking away funding for people's food? Well, on the other side of that, like we said, like being an agricultural girl. So I'm one of those people that's caught in the middle because I know a lot of people that survive off of those SNAP programs. And back to what you were saying about those restrictions in the SNAP programs, I really support people eating healthy, but I do not love the government being able to tell me what I can and cannot put in my body and what I can and can't eat. I think that is a really big issue with our own personal health and beliefs. And yes, some of these people are trying to use SNAP to buy soft drinks and that, but I don't want anyone to be able to tell me I can't use SNAP for what I want to buy and purchase. I think that controlling what people eat is somewhere that the government really shouldn't be able to touch on, because I think people should have access to all food.
Well, back to your point, John, the amount of bipartisan support it took to even get to this point, I think is one, remarkable, just because there's a lot of division right now, and that's why it's hard to get this done. Like Andy mentioned, we haven't really seen a full, complete review in a new farm bill since 2018. There's been a lot of revision, and feels like every time we get the ball rolling, it gets stalled again. And Senator Bozeman said numerous times, she's like, this is the outline that we had. Of course, we saw what the House Ag Committee had with G.T. Thompson and their version of it, and now what the Senate has and how much that's changed just to try to buy some of that bipartisan support. It's been a big topic, and I know we're going to continue covering it for time and time again, just because it's going to be revisited in September. But realistically, I don't know if this is something we're going to be able to see get through the end of the year. And when you throw in, they got to get a funding bill passed too. There's just a lot of ifs.
Yeah, there are a lot of ifs. And I know that one of the biggest things that Democrats had an issue with, of course, was the error rate that their states were having. Republicans were going to give them a year to figure it out. Democrats wanted 2 years to figure it out. That was where the big holdup was. I thought maybe that Fetterman would have came over with the Republicans, or one of the independents would have come over as well, like you said, John, to support the farmer and rancher, because this is the farm bill. But 85% of that bill is funding for SNAP. So a lot of things to continue to watch. As Colton mentioned, we'll keep a close eye on that through the coming months as the election year continues on here in 2026, the year of the International Rangeland and Pastoralist. It's a great year. I think it's the year of the horse, too, if I remember right.
And International Year of the Woman Farmer.
That's right.
There we go.
There it is.
It's just Bentley McCullough's year.
Honestly, maybe we should just go to the House ourselves and say it's just Bentley McCullough's year, period, point blank. Hot take.
Oh, before we get into visiting with Bentley on her journey with Miss Rodeo Montana, we got to say thank you to Nutrilix, the total livestock supplement. Nutrilix liquid supply is specifically formulated to provide the nutrients your cattle need to maintain good health and provide a returnable income on your investment, especially in the summer drought conditions. It is easier and cheaper to supplement grass now than it is to feed excess hay later. Well, as mentioned with us, Bentley McCullough, Miss Rodeo Montana. Montana. What an honor to have you in here. A busy week. We kind of were teasing it earlier about, your busy summer season that you've had so far. And now here in Billings this week for Rodeo Billings, year number 2 of Rodeo Billings, a revamp. They used to have their PRCA rodeo in October with their Nile, but I haven't been over there yet. I can smell the food every time we walk outside. I can hear the excitement from the kids on the carnival. But how's it been over there? Have you got a chance to get over there yet?
Today's my first day in Billings. I haven't had a chance, but I'm with you. Like, the elephant ears have been calling my name. I'm wanting to lather some butter and some brown sugar on those elephant ears over there. I'm so excited to get over there. But I get to spend the whole week over there. We've got the Miss Rodeo Montana 2027 pageant starting here on Thursday. So I'll get to spend a lot of time over there with our new contestant, Rebecca Stroh, and then my Miss Teen Rodeo Montana, Emily Torgerson.
What is your advice for those contestants that, obviously you said Rebecca's the contestant running this year. What's going to be your advice to be like, here's one thing I didn't think of when I ran that I didn't realize was going to happen to me on the rodeo road of Miss Rodeo Montana?
I'm actually taking this from the book of John Crimber, a PRCA bull rider. You watch him and you just know he's having fun. There's no question about it. He's having a good time. And you just got to have fun, and you can't take it all too seriously, because once it gets a little bit too serious, that's when you're too hard on yourself and the pressure builds up. So I would tell Rebecca that this is a great opportunity to just have fun and feel it out and ride the wave, because all in all, that's what this is about. And doing what we love, getting to advocate for agriculture and talk about things we're passionate about, that all becomes easier when you're just having fun and doing it. And that's what everyone says, but it's so true. You just got to find the way to do it with a smile on your face, for sure. Hard times, good times, happy times, all of it. You just got to smile through it all, like Dolly Parton would say.
Yes.
Well, let's dive back a little bit and talk about your journey to get to this point. Obviously, growing up with John McCullough is a challenge on its own. It has to be. But talk about growing up in Geraldine. What got you interested in, first rodeo, Western tradition, and then wanting to be Miss Rodeo Montana?
Yeah. So Geraldine, we've got a metropolis of about 200 people, counting some dogs here or there.
That's on Christmas.
Dogs
that means
and
cousins are home, grandma and grandpa's home, all the siblings are home.
So I graduated with 12 other kids, and then I went to college in Casper, Wyoming. And up until that point, showing cattle was our family's jam. That is what we did as a family. We hit 14 cattle shows in a year. We showed on a national level. We showed Angus, Simmental Angus, and traveled the world, traveled this great state of Montana, showcasing our livestock that we bred and raised on our ranch. And after you age out of 21 of doing the junior livestock showing, I decided it was time to try another lifestyle and head out to Boston. I applied to Northeastern University, got my degree in American Sign Language Interpreting, and I lived there for 4 years. But what I didn't realize, and I loved it, I was all for it. I even thought I was going to stay for a while. Then I started looking at my life, and I was a vet technician at a small animal hospital, and I was taking dressage lessons, and I was working at a farm in New Hampshire. And I said, Bentley, I think it's time to go home. I think you are trying to make Boston, Montana. You can do all of this at home. Let's go home. So I moved to Bozeman, and I got a job with a 5-year-old hard of hearing boy who I'm a interpreter for now. We are heading into kindergarten, which is a really exciting time for us. I actually just relearned my alphabet, which is really cool. But the really cool thing about going back through school is the teaching ways have changed so much from what I remember experiencing in kindergarten to how we're teaching kids now. So now just learning the alphabet and how we're teaching kiddos the alphabet is something that I get to learn as well. So this is just an opportunity. Like, I get to go through kindergarten and learn how to read again,
Boy, that'd be helpful.
Your math skills.
Pay a lot more attention this time around.
I get to pay a lot more attention this time around. My long division is going to be through the roof.
Wow.
Tell me about it. And my American history, like so much of that science stuff also.
Did you know Custer came here?
I'm gonna be the ultimate tutor for these kids.
Wow.
But the really fun part is I get to also, moving through classes with him, I get to experience and get to know all of these kiddos and just be another support system for all of them, not just the kid I interpret for. But going back to Miss Rodeo Montana, I was actually at the Livingston 4th of July Rodeo, and there is nowhere that I feel the Lord's presence stronger than in a rodeo arena. We just said the prayer. I'm balling, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hitting me really hard. And then Miss Rodeo Montana rides into the arena, and I was like, I'm going to do that. That is something that gives back to the community, but also promotes agriculture. And I just came from a place with a lot of people that didn't know. They'd be like, oh, you're from Montana. Is that like the Yellowstone show? Yes, it totally is. Absolutely. It totally is. My sister and I, we didn't have electricity until I was 18 years old.
To ride our horses.
We had to shower in the pond.
None of that being true, but they just didn't know. So I have all of that experience with inner city people and getting to tell them what I love about Montana and agriculture. And that is when the fire lit. I was like, I'm going to do this. I Googled it in the stands, and then March of 2025, I ran for Miss Rodeo Montana and received the title. I was then crowned in January of 2026. So I've got about 107 days left till I run for Miss Rodeo America. And every day before this has been an absolute treat, a blessing. Not only have I gotten to learn more about what I love about Montana, but learn more about myself as well.
Okay, so you grew up in Geraldine, showed cattle.
Yep.
Where on earth did this itch for sign language come into play?
I had a friend whose mom worked at the Montana School for the Deaf and Blind in Great Falls, and I saw her sign one time, and that was probably when I was a freshman in high school, and it stuck with me. Like, I hadn't ever been able to, and I had taken Spanish at that time, and then my senior year came around, and I had some open credits. I was just like, I'm going to take an online sign language course. I'm going to do it. So I petitioned to the board to let me have a proctor for this course, and I just started. I really just started, and I really attribute a lot of this to the Lord, because he had to put something like this on my heart to even try to do. It is such a niche thing, and I stuck with it. A really cool thing about learning American Sign Language, or any language in general, is you need to immerse yourself in the language. So when learning sign language, they call them deaf events. So I went by myself to the Montana School for the Deaf and Blind and went to one of their events to interact with the kids and the teachers and everything. And there was this first grade boy, and I asked him if he would help me learn the colors. And he would show me the color blue or red. And if I got it wrong, he'd say, no, you know this color, try again. But if he got it right, he was so happy and thrilled that I was learning his language. And from that day on, I knew I would continue signing. So then my freshman year of college, I took an in-person sign language class, which was 19, and then spring of 2020. And spring of 2020, my professor was like, you need to think about being an interpreter. You've got it. You have the love for it. You need to apply to a school. So I applied to Greeley, Colorado, and then I applied to Northeastern, and I was accepted to both. And I said, now was your choice to change your life completely and experience something totally different.
That's awesome.
So, much against our parents' wishes, I went to Boston.
As far away from Geraldine as possible.
I did.
Actually, backing up this story, in that class where Bentley was taking this online course for American Sign Language interpreting, a bunch of other people also in that class, myself included, and we all just had this free period of, this is like the list of classes that you could take. And a majority of the room was taking a reffing course because it was an easy A, but Bentley's like sitting in the back of the room practicing American Sign Language, and we're all just looking at her like, what is she doing? Well, so come to find out, none of us are refs, and the only one that actually made something out of that class is Bentley.
Well, I thought it was cool as you were telling this story, your fingers were just doing all this sign. I thought that was pretty cool.
Thank you. That story is really important to me. I sign it every single time I say it because I was interacting with a deaf boy. Yeah. And I've since then, so that would have been in 2019. Since then, I worked at the MSDB school in 2021, and then have also done some work with them this past year as well. So they've been a long-standing supporter of my career, and that was another reason I came back home to Montana, is I wanted to give back to my deaf community, because Massachusetts takes such great care of their deaf community. There's a lot of deaf-owned organizations that just support and give to the deaf community, and I wanted to be able to take all of that knowledge and bring it here to Montana.
What are some things that Montana's lacking that could catch up with Boston?
So it is just so interesting as well because Massachusetts has got such a concentrated community of deaf people, whereas here in Montana, we've got deaf people everywhere. And I first and foremost would love to improve our interpreting and supplying of interpreters here in Montana, just because that is how all of our deaf people gain knowledge and gain access to anything, including rodeo. Massachusetts has made this amazing system to request interpreters within the area, which it has to look a lot different here in Montana. But I would love to figure out a way to be able to support more deaf people in just the interpreting section of our support system, which then could bleed into many other things, improving that educational system and improving just sign language courses in general and offering here in Montana as well. So I think that there's a lot of really great things, but from Massachusetts, we just have to tweak and bring here to Montana.
So as you mentioned, it's such a small, maybe overlooked community, but not a small community at the same point. How do you think being Miss Rodeo Montana and serving on this platform has allowed you to bring publicity to maybe just the school, the Montana school, or to interpreting in general and just kind of spreading the awareness?
Yeah, totally. That has been my goal throughout this entire role, is just being able to talk and be an advocate and a friend to my deaf community here. Being able to advocate for them brings so much. Just someone else thinking about it, or my photos, or any of that, my interactions with the deaf community. I actually got to interpret a couple rodeos, one of them being the Montana Circuit Finals in Great Falls. Just people seeing me interpret. That's it. All they knew was I was down there doing American Sign Language interpreting, and that could have if I sparked one person to even learn sign language, that is such a win in my book, because we do have such a huge, thriving deaf community here in Montana. I just want to be able to continue to show that love to that community, and who better than the rodeo community and the agricultural community to share the deaf community with, because we are such family-rooted, grounded community that wants to give and wants to help and support others. So I just believe that who better than us.
Well, and talk about the other message that you're sharing as Miss Rodeo Montana. We've seen your pictures all over the place. I went to Hoagland's, I think, in Great Falls for the Stock Growers event and saw you on the wall. And I think keep your brand burning, right?
Yes.
That's the slogan. Talk about that message.
Yep. Keep your brand burning is doing what you are passionate about, no matter where it leads you. That is what I have always done. That is what led me to even start American Sign Language. That's what led me to Boston. It doesn't matter if you've got the weirdest, most niche interest at all, just give it a try, because it could completely change your entire life. Before even learning sign language, I thought I was going to go over to Washington and get my degree in animal chiropractic. And what an absolute change of a life that I got to experience, because I fell in love with something just a little bit niche. And when I go to school visits and stuff and appearances like that, I'd make sure to tell our kids and tell these students that it doesn't matter how big or tiny your dream may be, it can go through the open doors, because those are what creates new experiences and new opportunities for you.
Yeah, definitely. Looking ahead as well, you mentioned running for Miss Rodeo America. We know that it would mean the world to you to probably win that title, but what's your preparation been so far to get ready for Miss Rodeo America pageant? I think that's in Las Vegas in December.
Yep, it is. I check in November 28th, and that is an 8-day long pageant. My preparation, honestly, since July 4th, 2024, Miss Rodeo America, or I guess July 5th, probably when I knew, has been a thought in my mind, and knowing that every step towards being Miss Rodeo Montana is another step towards being Miss Rodeo America. And it has been, but it's also, like I said, not about Bentley McCullough winning Miss Rodeo America. It's about being able to share my platform on a much larger scale to improve not only support system here in Montana, but thinking about how we could improve support system throughout the Western industry, how we can get Western news interpreted, how we can get even rodeo interpreted on a platform or such like that to spread that knowledge to our deaf communities in their first language. So being able to represent the state of Montana at the Miss Rodeo America pageant would be so amazing, and I am so excited. And I have been preparing through watching the Cowboy Channel and, like I said, studying, but also getting to know myself and what I want through this role, but what I would want through that role as well. And that's a lot of what that pageant is about. It's figuring out how you can stay true to yourself through 8 days straight with 30 other girls around you. You got to stay blinders on, because as soon as you start comparing yourself to another girl and start thinking, oh, well, maybe I should have done this, you got to go into that pageant knowing everything that I've done in this pageant is as perfect as I could have done it. And that's how, one, you don't beat yourself up, and two, you are able to showcase yourself.
What does the interview process for those that aren't familiar with it look like when you head down to the NFR?
Yeah, so there's the check-in, and then we have numerous impromptu speaking opportunities, speaking about the news and current agricultural news, as well as there's a horsemanship pattern that is judged, as well as a horsemanship interview. There's also a knowledge test that covers PRCA rules, PRCA current events. There's also impromptu questions about the PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, and things happening within our sport. And then on top of that, there is a fashion show, a personality interview as well, because the judges really want to get to know you and who you are and what you believe in. And mixed in with all of that, we have lunches and breakfasts with the judges too. So altogether, we're checked in for 8 days. We are completely sequestered, no phones, no technology. We are chaperoned at all times, but we really only get about 10 to 15 minutes one-on-one with the judges throughout 8 days. Other than that, they are watching how you interact with the other girls and interact with spectators and watching you on stage. So it is quite a lengthy process, but it's also just a test to see who's got the stamina to do it and keep the smile on for 8 days.
Speaking of getting to know Bentley, we brought in her sister, Jonna McCullough, today.
Time for the tea.
Time for the tea.
Yes.
Well, when we asked Bentley to come on, I think Jonna said, well, what do you want to talk about? And she said, well, not Miss Rodeo Montana. Wanted to talk about fair food, concerts, and drama. So here's your chance.
And then Coulter's like, well, it sounds like she wants to talk about Miss Rodeo Montana. That seems like it.
I'm always talking about Miss Rodeo Montana.
Who is Bentley McCullough to you, Jonna?
Well, my older sister, duh.
Oh. I thought I was teeing up for my hero, but whatever.
Very, very heartfelt.
Honestly, I guess kind of last time I was actually asked this question, I did tear up. So I'm really going to try this time not to do that, because as you guys know, I'm kind of a softie at times. But I can't look at Bentley when I say this, because I definitely will.
It's okay.
If anything, my sister has been just nothing but motivating. Kind of growing up where we did, and our parents just preached to us that in anything that we do it with your whole heart. And Bentley, when she first took that American Sign Language class in that free period while the rest of us are dinking around, taking a reffing class on sports we already know, Bentley's over here just putting her love and passion into American Sign Language, and just kind of saw it as not just a class, but something that she could definitely dive into and just do with her whole heart. And then when she went to Casper and kind of took this class, and it was your minor at first, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. American Sign Language. And then you ended up testing into the second level of the program at Northeastern University. And I just remember so many people asked me, well, what does she want to do with that? Or is she going to be the one on the TV interpreting the Super Bowl? And I just wish I could go back and say, no, she's actually going to be one on the TV interpreting the NFR, not the Super Bowl, actually. Or Fort Worth Stock Train Rodeos. That's actually her. But just kind of going back, when I first started looking into colleges, and obviously my first thought was, oh, how far do I want to go? Like, I want to stay in Montana because I want to be here with the ranch and mom and dad, and I was still tied into showing cattle. But then, I followed my livestock judging career and I went down to Casper. But then after that, it was, where do I want to go? And I just kept thinking, well, Bentley went all the way literally across the entire country. Like, so what if I go just to Oklahoma? I mean, that's not that far compared to where Bentley went. And so she's been nothing but motivating, and definitely our parents in the way they raised us. If you're going to do it, you better do it with your whole heart, because you won't get anything out of it doing it half-assed. And then also Bentley and I did everything together growing up. And the question I also get asked a lot is, well, are you next? And so Bentley and I grew up together, and being in such a small school, we had the same friends because we were on the same sports teams. So we had the same friends. We were in the same group. We always did everything together. And if Bentley got it, I most likely got it too. So like, for instance, our example, when Bentley got a phone, I got one too. Or when Bentley got this, I also got one too. It's just kind of how we are so close in age. That's kind of how Mom, I guess, kept me from crying.
It was fair. It was fairness.
Mom just wanted to keep
Spoken
it fair.
like a true younger sibling.
Exactly.
So whenever I get asked, okay, are you next, Jonna? I just kind of, and Bentley and I have talked about this actually, and my kind of underlying answer is no, I'm not next, because this is Bentley's thing, and Bentley's put a lot of time, effort, and money into this, that this is hers. And we've had to share everything growing up, that I don't want to take this opportunity from her. I don't want to share this opportunity with her. This is Bentley's spotlight, and it's all hers. So anybody out there who's going to ask me that, no, it's not. I'm not next.
Bentley,
it's not me.
I'm going to ask a very ignorant question, because it says American Sign Language is your degree. Is there other languages in sign language? I don't know signing, so I apologize. That's such a silly question, but
it's not silly. Everyone asks. American Sign Language is known as the most universal, but there is French Sign Language, Auslan Sign Language, Chinese Sign Language. There is all sorts of different sign languages out there. American Sign Language actually came from French Sign Language and Plains Indian Sign Language.
Well, to wrap up here a little bit, just as you mentioned, you know, the 2027 pageant is happening here in town this week, so that's exciting, but that means they got to kick you off your high horse at some point and move on to the next gal. But taking a look back at your year, what has been your favorite memory as Miss Rodeo Montana? And then, because you get to go to all of these rodeos, the events, favorite food or concert? I know those were the lists, right?
Okay.
So favorite memory, food, and concert.
All right. My favorite memory is at the Livingston 4th of July rodeo this year, 2026. I got to ride through the arena, and I had enough mental capacity to think, this is what you've been working for. This is what 2 years of your life has got you. Full circle moment. You get to experience this, and this is what it feels like to attain a goal. And how fulfilling is that? Anything else after that is a cherry on top. Everything has been a cherry on top to this experience. Favorite concert was Trace Adkins.
Nice.
Yep, I got to see him at Miles City Bucking Horse Sale. Yep, that was a rockin' time. He's a pretty cool guy. Like, let's be real. Yep. And,
ponytail and all.
my favorite food, while I was at Cheyenne Frontier Days, they were selling buckets of hot cookies and glasses of milk. And this milk
on the milk.
At the end of July?
Easy.
That sounds horrible. 100 degrees and just slam a glass of milk.
I would do it.
I'd throw up.
It would be warm. Warm milk, warm
Even
cookies.
better.
You just dunk it. Oh my gosh. So good.
I think we figured out the metal gold situation. Well, that's good stuff. Bentley, appreciate you coming in today. We got a little bit more before we let you go, because we got to talk about the markets. And of course, the markets are sponsored by the Montana Farm Bureau Federation, as the Montana Farm Bureau Federation's leading Montana agriculture towards a future of a prosperous economy and thriving rural communities. Become an advocate with Montana Farm Bureau Federation and help protect the future of Montana agriculture. Learn more at mfbf.org. And Colton, as we wrap up here, we had the big news today in the market end of things. The World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report coming out. Had a lot to unravel here, a lot to unpack here, because it was a big market moving day for the grain markets, but
none of it was
for livestock.
Opposite for livestock. We saw the feeder and live cattle contracts down several dollars. It's one of those, I think the market's kind of in that weird standstill point at the moment, just because we're coming off the summer run. We know that big fall run is coming up here in just a few short weeks, and typically as we see that kind of transition, that's when we start to see packers gain more leverage in the marketplace. And you look at some of the data from last week, Andy. We'll get to the WASDE report here on the grains in just a second, but looking at what the Fed slaughter pace was a week ago, 105,000 head of cows coming in. biggest in 2026 that we've seen bought on the cash market. And so these packers now, they're not short bought, at least for the next few weeks. They've got a lot of that. Granted, like 86% was for immediate delivery. So that's a lot to factor in here, but we're starting to see that shift, I think, a little bit. And they're obviously slowing down slaughter paces, trying to correct their margins. And so that just put a little bit of pressure on the market here today. Going back to the World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates report, of course, most of that report is the grain outlook, supply and demand, production, but they do have a little section there on the livestock, and they are reporting the third quarter steer prices to be around $242 a hundred. That's down $13 from their estimate from a month ago. Fourth quarter down $10 at $245. Their total beef production estimate down 320 million pounds as we continue to keep those slaughter paces slower and keep adding days on feed for these cattle. Now, the big part is, as we know, the big announcement this month was we're going to reopen the southern border to Mexican cattle imports. Imports in this report, 73 million pound increase. Almost all of that due to opening the southern border here come August 24th. So big takeaway there, but a little bit of pressure on the board. It has not affected any of these prices around the countryside as we're still in the thick of the end of the summer video sale season. Western Video Market in Cheyenne this week, they held their Little America sale. Light 4-weight steer calves, 504 up to 529. Mid to heavy 5 weights, 476 a pound. 8 and 8.5 weights, 374. 1,000-pound steers averaged $342.5. They were selling 1,000-pound yearlings for $3,400 a head, consistent through that entire sale. Going down to some of the heifer mates, not too far off, 6 to 6.5 weights at $432, 800-pound heifers $347, 900s at $323. So just absolutely phenomenal market for that. Of course, Live Ag is hosting a sale in Cody this week. Next week, we're turning around Northern Livestock, kicking off their early fall preview that Northern Ag sponsors. So we're just in the thick of these video sales, and it's a good time to sell cattle.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of yearlings on that Northern Livestock's early fall preview, and going to be exciting to see how that turns out. Same week as well as the Bighorn Classic
yep,
from Superior Livestock. So more video sales to prove what the demand looks like.
Yeah, next week we should have some updates, and we'll all be at Northern Livestock's Monday, the dinner at Cowboys, and I think Amelia and I are headed down to Sheridan for the Bighorn Classic. So we'll have a lot of updates from the video markets there. Jonna, I know we told you to dive into the markets a little bit. What's your hot take? Or even you too, Bentley. You can dive in here. What do you think? What do you think? Crystal ball. What are the cattle markets going to do here this fall?
Up.
Well, I like that.
We want them to go up. I'm really excited about that Mexican border opening, especially since we use steers from Mexico for pro rodeo. So it's really great news. To get those back up here. So.
Yeah, that is one of the big positives of that announcement is, and those Texas feeders, they've been struggling to get cattle in their feedlots. So.
It's a dire need to save southern infrastructure in the U.S. That is 1,000,000% going to have some sort of a short-term effect, as we all know, but it's due. We need it to keep the market flowing. We've already had a stable market and seen high prices with it opened up. So get it back to return to normal here. But the other part of the market segment here, Andy, is we look at the grains and what that supply and demand report showed. Going to see a fairly bullish week here, I think, for the grain markets and specifically the wheat contracts. Now, if you look at what the board did here at the midpoint of the week, up 25 to 30 cents, you're like, dang, that was a great supply and demand report. Actually, Ukraine continues to hurt Russian imports and their ports with more war situation going back and forth. And it's just, we hear peace talks and then we decide to send more strikes and we hear peace talks. And so I don't know how many times we've seen a 20 to 30 cent swing, but wheat market's up pretty hard here. And then as we look at that supply outlook, they're calling for smaller U.S. wheat production. Once again, taking another hit down to the winter wheat production for that, down 5 million bushels overall from last month. Ending stocks decreased by 22% from this time last year. So don't have as much of it in stock there. Demand for wheat, expecting to see a slight increase, and especially on the global scale, as we look at all of these war events, the Strait of Hormuz being closed, that's going to cause some issues for the flow of fertilizer down to the southern hemisphere. Brazil, the European Union, and United Kingdom all seeing major decreases to their wheat estimate for the production for this next year. So could see a big swing. Should be pretty bullish to U.S. wheat markets.
Yep. A lot of ups and downs, of course, in the grain markets. And, of course, you can always follow them on our website northernag.net. As this is going to be about it for today's episode. But next week, a fun episode as well. A couple of episodes going to be coming up next week, but one of them, world champion auctioneer Jace Thompson.
Yeah, we've got 2026 World Livestock Auctioneer champ Jace Thompson. I know he's headed out to Virginia this weekend to kick off his WLAC tour as the king, and so he'll be selling in Virginia. I'm sure his dad probably threw in a tough hand to get him roped back down here for the fall preview sale next week for Northern Livestock, but he'll be in town next week, so excited to have Jace on and talk a little bit about some auctioneering.
Yep, and of course we're going to be visiting next week as well with the Montana Beef Council, talking about some of the things they're looking forward to in the upcoming year, because they're about to have their big strategic plan meeting as well and get their budget set for the following year. And it's kind of a tough situation for those guys because they get their funds from cattle per head, so not as many cattle, so not as much funds available. So they're going to try their best to spend their money in the right places and promote beef as the number one protein. But that is going to wrap us up on today's Next Year Country. For John McCullough, for Colton Young, and of course for Miss Rodeo Montana, Bentley McCullough, I'm Andy Schwab. Next Year Country podcast, powered by Northern Ag Network.